Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. So glad to have you with us again. I'm glad to be back. I was away about 7 months, and I said last week I was interviewed by none other than the famous Ron Wildman, and I like to thank Ron for sitting around this table and carrying on this show for a period of almost 7 months. And I thank him. He did a great job. And I thank all of the guests who appeared, and definitely thank you, the audience, for tuning in. Today in the Spotlight is Monica Blash Hodges. Monica is let me see if I can get this right, Monica. You are a political activist, you're a community organizer, a mother, a wife, and a real go-getter in this community when it comes to politics. Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ellis, for having me.
Well, I want to talk. I wasn't here, as I said. I was out of the country for about approximately exactly 7 months. And of course, during that time, we had a presidential campaign. I was here for the mayor's campaign. I left shortly thereafter. We had a presidential campaign, and of course, we had the historic Senate race here. And you were involved in this. Tell us about that campaign. How was those campaigns? How was the Senate runoff different from the presidential campaign in terms of energy, in terms of excitement and things of that nature?
Well, what I can say, definitely, 2020 was definitely a challenging year for all of us. And I think with the pandemic, a lot of people kind of really got more into politics and just was barely familiar with, jobs. And so everybody was kind of energized in this election. I mean, the amount of, new people that registered to vote, that was energized, so we did a grassroots campaign where we basically went out and make sure they understand to vote the whole ticket, answer any questions why this vote is important, absentee ballots, whatever we can do to, minimize that, because a lot of times, a lot of people that are new that haven't voted before, they pretty much kind of, get that anxiety about it. So I worked with different campaigns, including ACLU as a legal observer. And there, that was in the Senate runoff. And that basically, I was able to see some of the voter issues firsthand, where, they're been turned away. They were, basically some of the issues that we have. So we do have some training opportunities, but they were so energized that they did not walk away without casting their vote.
Now, were you working for or with the Democratic Party, and they assigned you to the ACLU,
no,
or were you assigned to the ACLU as a...
Yeah, at ACLU, yes. I would just say ACLU, yes.
And your job was to make sure what?
My job was to basically make sure that, people were able to engage their right to vote. As far as they have any issues, concerns, we have with this voter purges and different things with voter issues. So I was a direct contact to immediately, because, a lot of people really don't know when they have an issue, like, where do I go and take care of that? So I was on the front line. They call me with an issue, and we go ahead and resolve that immediately. And I think that, definitely showed them that, voting is, that's your constitutional right, and don't have anyone take that away from you. So, definitely, being a voice for people who really don't understand the process or new to the process, they really felt liberated, to go out and cast their votes in both elections.
Now, were you partisan? Was this in other words, you were for a particular candidate, or you were just...
Yeah, I was basically,
make sure that people, you were nonpartisan in this one. But of course, I know that you were not pulling for.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, I'm a.
But you were part of the Democratic Party.
Yes, exactly, and yeah. So definitely, Georgia turned blue, and I'm definitely excited. I mean, the demographics in Bibb County is majority, Democrats.
Sure.
And it definitely aligns. So I definitely, recognize myself as a Democrat as well. But with ACLU, I was basically there to make sure everybody, rights were,
protected.
Exactly, and. So a lot of the different issues. So now, and that's why I want to, anybody that had any issues that are unresolved in either candidate election, because we reach out to the Secretary of State, to go ahead and, follow up on those issues. Because there's nothing in place, like if you have an issue or there's nothing, no trending. So I'm trying to trend and get the data so we can know and identify training issues that we have. Because we had one in presidential primary, the machine went down. The poll manager told them to come back later, and versus giving them emergency ballots.
Yeah. Let's talk about Monica a little bit. Talk not only what you do, but you are a graduate of a master's from Western.
Yes, I have an undergraduate. I have an undergraduate from Westland College,
and an MBA.
And an MBA, yes.
From Westland as well.
Yes.
The executive MBA.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, how has that prepared you for your work that you do in the community? Because you in politics, you're a community organizer, you're trying to inform people. How has your education prepared you for what you do?
Well, definitely with education, it definitely broadens your aspect with different things. Just being able to effectively communicate with individuals, being able to review data, especially when the political, you have to like basically look at the trends, look at the information from the last, and what is our goal. And just being able to utilize like my business mindset with understanding finance. Of course, with politics, there's money, raising money, campaigning, marketing. Reports. Yeah, definitely a lot of reports, everyday reports. Finance, and as far as marketing, I mean, even, because I think, I worked on your campaign before. So with that is how do we, basically engage voters as far as getting everyone involved, from making calls to knocking on doors to, I mean, you have to have a presence in the community. And I think that's one thing why you were so successful as well, because, you basically didn't mind going into any part of Macon. You were so visible. I mean, you were just like our superstar here in Macon, Georgia.
Oh my God.
You are, and I'm definitely waiting on them to put something to name it in your honor, because we definitely need that legacy ongoing. Well, we definitely look up to you.
Yeah, which will bring me to my question. You are a well-educated young woman, well-informed in this community, but so many young African-American men and women, once they go off to college, get an education, they head to Atlanta or they head to Charlotte or Nashville, wherever they go, and they don't come. What do you say to young people? Is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity here for young people to get involved, especially at the grassroots level as you have?
Exactly. And I think the thing there, I mean, I understand. Now, of course, if you have a job starting out to get your feet started, but I was born and raised in Macon, and so definitely, the thing is, you can create, there's so many opportunities, and one thing I'll say, if there's not something for you, you can create that. You can create your nonprofit, for-profit, you can create your own, organization, whatever you're passionate about, because we have so much, work to do in Macon Bibb, as far as economic development, just trying to close that, that gap, so just trying.
And politics works with all of that.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have the right people in office.
Exactly. And I had to explain to them how politics affect their daily life, and why voting is so important, and I know, and that's why it's so important to, energize, the younger generation, because if they don't get out and vote, it's gonna fade away, Yeah. Older individuals or middle-aged, you don't have to encourage them to vote. But I think this election, having the support of all different levels, from entertainers to, and educating them. So I think you have to find what avenue they connect with best. They're on social media. They want things. That's the thing now. Social media, and so, being creative and finding different ways, to connect with them.
To be in touch with them.
Exactly.
Well, go ahead.
No, so that has been, for the past two elections, I think that was definitely, you saw a big presence, and, we were able to say, hey, go out and vote, take however 10 people with you, and they just seeing the videos and just being understanding of, seeing the thing that a lot of people.
Getting people energized and excited.
Exactly. The energy was definitely, when people came out with that sticker, they just taking pictures and posting it, and, and it was just such a.
I tell you one thing, I have never received, and I was overseas, and
you never received your ballot?
No, but I've never received so many text messages about a campaign as I did, especially the Senate campaign. Yes. But what I didn't do, and you're going to get mad at me, maybe some other people will, but I wasn't able to vote in that race. I went to the embassy, to the American embassy there, because I was voting as an American overseas. And the embassy was closed on that day that I was far from the embassy. I didn't get a chance to go back to get a ballot or to get a vote in. So I'm glad that Warnock and Ossoff won.
Yes. Well, I know even Tyler Perry, he didn't get his absentee ballot, and he actually, he had the luxury of flying, to Georgia and, flying back. And that's the thing too. I think the first of every year, is kind of like people understanding the process, making sure you're registered to vote. It's like the first of every year is kind of like cleanup time. Check your credit. Look at your life insurance policies. Look at your 401ks and all that type of stuff, and just make sure your voting stuff is intact. Make sure your name is updated, address, all of that is updated. So especially with the new bill coming up, the HB
Yeah, we
513.
want to talk a little bit about that. But before I just want to tell you who we're talking with here, in case you just joined us. We're talking with Monica Hodges. She is a political operative, I call her, political activist. She's does a lot of work in politics in this community, organizing, getting people to vote, educating people about voting. We appreciate that. But speak a little bit about, because what I don't know a lot about this bill. It was introduced before I returned, but I have looked at it, haven't read it in detail. But I understand this bill is it was going to eliminate Sunday voting. I understand that got back in. Mm-hmm. But the big thing they're doing is eliminating the no excuse absentee ballot. And I understand that's how this race was won, the amount of people that were voting absentee ballot. How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing is, we had definitely record numbers of absentee ballots, and that's because.
But now they're trying to eliminate it. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
I think that is, definitely, a violation of constitutional rights. I mean, because we have a lot of people that have no choice but to vote absentee ballot. They're in nursing homes. They don't have the ability to, to go to a polling place. On election day, when we try to get people that need a ride to the polling election day, they can't even get in a vehicle. So when you have,
what they're saying though, Monica, and I hate to cut you off, but maybe I should qualify this. They're not eliminating all absentee ballots. They want to eliminate the no excuse absentee ballots. Well, now you don't have to have an excuse, but the ones you're saying, people in nursing home, they will still have an excuse and still be able to get one. But the blanket, what do you come down and just eliminating the blanket no excuse absentee ballot?
I think that is because everybody have different circumstances, and it's just like, I've been a single parent, it may be, okay, I can't get off work, or, don't have a vehicle. I mean, everybody have different circumstances going on. I mean, you have, essential workers that's working around the clock, and so I think we need to step back and, and I understand too, they were with absentee wanting additional ID to make sure that is, that individual. And with that, I'll say, people understand you can go to your Board of Elections and get a free voter ID. So you don't have that issue, and it's no cost whatsoever. That way they can resolve that. If you don't have an ID, you can just take a few couple pieces of mail, verify your identity, and you will get a picture voter ID for free. So the thing is with that, we just have to be one step ahead of the game. A lot of people, they don't have a job or don't drive. They don't have an ID. I mean, depending on different people's circumstances.
So all of the barriers, you work to try to get those barriers, make sure that people understand those barriers, how to get around them, and how to eliminate them. Now, another thing in this bill, I think maybe it's in the Senate bill as opposed to the House bill, but maybe it's also in the House bill. They are trying to eliminate the drop boxes. We know that the post office, sometimes you can drop a mail letter here and they get there in 2 days. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 days. So they had these drop boxes where you could drop absentee ballots, I understand, this time around. And they want to eliminate those. Do you think that's, how is that?
Well, I think the thing too, with this past election, there was so much craziness going on where people putting up, fake drop boxes. If you were dropping your info, so you had people placing drop boxes, so they vote wouldn't count. And so that's the thing too, is being educated. And if we do have the drop boxes, making sure it's at certain locations. Like if you go on the website, so I think these drop boxes was just strategically placed different places, and you don't know if it's, for the U.S. Post Office, they look legitimate for the most part. And that was a big thing that, a lot of politicians were saying, that, people were just dumping it, putting in, like what was the process to it, and a lot of people eventually found out the absentee ballot was never received, never counted, and that's why you can go on the myvoterpage.sos.ga and it can give you the status when your application is mailed. Normally when you have it to the Board of Elections, they have 3 days to send it to you, and then once it's submitted back, and if there's any issues, so you want to check all of that as well.
Yeah. Well, now we have this election behind us, a historic election.
Yes.
Georgia turning blue for the first time since '92. How about that? Georgia blue since '92. But anyway, so and then we have a historic election, a Jewish American elected as a senator, as well as an African American, the first ever in the history of our state. So now going forward, looking
and the first VP president, the first female
yeah,
VP
exactly,
president. Yes.
exactly. But
so there's so many historic things, that has happened. Yeah.
But looking forward, 2022, they say all politics local. 2022, we come back local. We got a governor's race. We have Secretary of State's race. Some people already saying they're going to challenge him on the Republican side, but that's where they are. Everyone knows I'm a Democrat.
Yes.
But in terms of the governor's race, Stacey Abrams, do you expect to see her as a candidate? She hasn't announced
yes,
yet. Do you expect that?
I think.
What are you all hearing in Democratic circle?
Well, I think with
enlighten me.
Well, I mean, I haven't got like a official I'm running, but I think especially with this last election, how she's basically created a phenomenal platform as far as turning Georgia blue, reaching out to voters. And even
and so have you. We give her credit, and rightly
yeah,
so.
I mean, on the
but
state
there's
level.
a lot of people
Yes,
work
yes.
in the local level, and I want to make sure that everyone gets credit. And no problem with Stacey, but that blueprint, quiet as kept. Maynard Jackson put that blueprint in place when he was running for the chair of the Democratic Party in 2002. He put the blueprint in place to turn the South blue, not just Georgia,
yes.
but the South blue. He said the South could go blue, and here's how you can do it. And she took that and ran with it and implemented it, so power to her. But she had a lot of help from people like you.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was definitely, because I've worked with, her and her different campaigns. I've worked with Rebecca Duhart, who was, basically just over the Democratic Party of Georgia. She's now over Fair Fight. So the biggest thing is we just want to, I think with all this stuff going on, it's like, and I don't like the, energy. At the end of the day, I have friends that are, different political affiliations, and I don't judge individuals based on that, So I think it created, like a divide, even in Macon, it's kind of like, it's like a division, and we're not, in 2021, I think for me, that is so disheartening because, we have all these mass killings and different things going on, and there's so much.
And the COVID.
And there's so much divisiveness, and it's just a lot just taking care of the day-to-day life, but trying to deal with racism,
protecting the franchise, which is so important, making sure people can vote. That's important.
Exactly. And so, we have ACLU with the issue. We've had certain things that, and the only way we're going to get it resolved is, submitting complaints. And I want people to understand the things that are in place, and this is with everything. There's laws set out to protect you, whether from an employment standpoint, labor laws, there's voting laws. And just understanding those laws as well. And you have a lot of voter suppression, which is, and there's a lot of suppression because, they know we're a threat. If all of us vote, we've shown that we get out and we vote, and I think that has energized people to keep that same momentum because they realize they vote count. A lot of people before didn't think their voice mattered, their voice didn't count. So it's like, this is like, okay,
Yeah. Well, we know in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, at least Section 5. Well, actually, Section 4, really, because if you get rid of Section 4, Section 5 become irrelevant.
Yes.
But this time, it looks as though they are going after Section 2 with these things they're doing in this state. Do you see the ACLU mounting a challenge for that and through the Supreme Court, that this getting back to the Supreme Court to prevent some of the things that's happening in Georgia and other states?
Definitely. I think if you go on the Brennan University, you'll see all the different lawsuits that were filed throughout the state, but also Georgia, from the different organizations, all the different lawsuits and the reasons, for the lawsuit. And it basically deals with absentee voting,
the drop boxes.
The drop boxes, turning people away, absentee ballot,
ID, and all that stuff.
poll monitors, and I want people to understand too. There's ways that you can get involved, and I see even this time a lot of people wanted to volunteer at the polls, and that's how we can make sure there's transparency. You're just there to make sure, you're in there to make sure there's nothing, flaky going on. It was one poll worker that, they turned a voter away, so she went outside and just say, hey, you can do a provisional ballot. And the polling manager wanted her arrested, just for telling a guy he can complete a provisional ballot. Because that's, as a monitor, that's...
I heard yesterday they're talking about speaking of provisional ballots, they're saying that in the future of this bill, that if you vote other words, if you, like now, if you go to a precinct and you're not,
Yeah.
that's not where you're registered, you can go on and vote provisionally.
Yes, you can. I mean-
and that ballot would, but they're saying going forward, that ballot won't count. That if you don't vote at your assigned precinct
Well-
when you're supposed, that they will not be, they won't be able to take
Well-
that. Now, we don't know whether, I hope the governor vetoes
Exactly.
that.
Well, the thing is, too, this past election, we had a lot of, I mean, this was a federal election. So if you in your county voting provisional, it doesn't matter if I go to, you know,
It shouldn't.
it doesn't matter. It's still a provisional ballot. You have 3 days to go and rectify whatever the issue is, and everything is good. So you're in the county. Now, of course, if you're not in the right county, state.
But they're saying now with this new bill proposed, that this proposal, I hope it doesn't go forward,
Yeah,
this new proposal.
and the thing is, when you're looking at a place, you know, we have different people in different economic statuses. You know, some people that don't have vehicles, you know, they'll just walk to the closest polling place, you know, or if they're catching a bus route, or they're on their lunch break, you know. So just educating those individuals. I mean, because we don't want voting to seem like it is stressful, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically, you know, just as important as.
If I would ask you, and I'm sure you've written a report, and you're a good writer, I know you're writing.
Yeah.
If you would write a report and say lessons learned that you would like to move forward and say, this is what we learned and let's move this forward, what would be the biggest lesson that you learned in these 2 elections, working as closely as you did and with the ACLU and others to make sure? What was the biggest lesson? What was the takeaway, other than we turned blue? What was the biggest takeaway that we can move forward to 2022 and beyond?
The thing is, voter education. You know, understanding. You know, to make sure. Making sure you register to vote. Because a lot of people don't. You know, they just told they can just go to any precinct. You know. So they don't understand the different ID requirements, not understanding their rights.
If you've not voted in the last,
Yeah,
how
exactly,
you get
exactly.
taken off the rolls and all that.
And the thing is, if even if you're not, they have to still give you a provisional. They're not the voter police. They're there to, overview the process. So the biggest thing with me, I don't know if, I think, we have like the ballots and we'll give to different people. But I think too also voting the whole ballot, don't just vote 1 or 2 candidates. We need every vote to count. Every,
Yeah, because some people just go vote to the top and take it.
Yeah, we've had a lot where people just vote, and we have amendments on their bills, and they don't vote on those things. Understanding why those things are just as important,
So you have to educate yourself.
Exactly.
You have
well,
to
and I
inform
think
people.
with that, I know when I just going out campaigning, and a lot of people don't understand. They'll just say, "Well, we just had an election." I said, "We have federal, we have state, we have local." They don't understand. And
Runoff.
Yes, and just giving them the, what does a Secretary of State does? They feel like I don't even know what this person does. So why? So just giving them the outline of what this person does, like the tax commissioner, why that, how he affects your daily life, because they don't know what the tax commissioner does. Because right now, unfortunately, they've taken American, civics and government out of schools.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't really understand a lot of the things that, we were privy to growing up.
Will we see Monica in 2022 involved in the process
definitely. Well,
again?
well,
you will stay. You're still involved, so you didn't disengage. You will continue
Exactly.
in the process
And
right
yes.
through 2022 and probably on to 2024.
Exactly. I mean, because this is, this is also our future. Your future, but my future as well. And I think the thing too with grassroots, you can't just start the day or two before. It's like you have to it's like a wave of different things. So I like to go ahead.
So you're organizing now what you're telling
Exactly.
me for
Basically
2022.
making sure people are registered. Educating them on the absentee, because even when you do an absentee ballot, you have to have it completed a certain way for it to count. Just the different things so they can understand that. And if they, any challenges they have, if they, like I keep a roll of the same ones with issues that need to ride to the polls. I take them pretty much every election, make sure they get there. And if I meet a person that say, hey, I'm willing to, drive people to the polls or go to the senior place and help with absentee ballots, I go ahead and I keep a roll of those individuals. Because, you have to request an absentee ballot every year, so we have to go into those senior places, go ahead and get those done or whatever. And
I'm one of those seniors, so I would probably be in one of those senior places. And which brings me to my next question. How are you all, or what are you doing to identify and not only you, I have a responsibility to identify future leaders, to identify future politically people who are interested in politics. And what are we doing to bring them in, to assess them, to train them in the way of campaign? Do we have an organization like that in place outside of the Democratic Party? Do we have anything local like that?
I think the thing is, you know, when people, you know, like in my close contacts, you know, they basically, like if I have to go out and do canvassing, you know, I'll, you know, reach out to your close contacts, of course. And I think when they, you know, and I say even if you put an hour or two a day.
Our future political leaders, what I'm really driving at.
Yeah,
Are we identifying and recruiting candidates?
Not as much as we should, but you know, I think that's where the Democratic Party definitely have opportunity, because you know we need to start grooming those individuals, getting them in place so they can understand. And I may be looking at running for, you know,
well, I hope so. I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask, will we see, taking all this knowledge that you have learned about campaigns and about politics, will we see your name on the ballot sometime in the very near future? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that definitely may be possible. And the thing is, I want to, you know, make sure I'm able to make a difference, you know.
Yeah. But you're not doing this. Let me make sure it's clear. Your work in politics didn't start because you had political aspiration.
No, my work in politics started because I worked in corporate America, you know, and just seeing a lot of, you know, the wage, you know, inequality and just different, and I'm just like, this is.
But the opportunity presents itself, you'll take advantage
exactly,
of it.
Exactly.
And we need more young people like you.
Thank you. And I think we need mentors, just like, you know, you definitely, I mean, I know anyone can contact you and just get, you know, advice, because it's a different territory.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to help.
I know, and that's
unfortunate. We are out of time,
okay.
Almost out of
that's
time.
Fine. Time flies, you're having fun.
Yeah, we've been speaking with Monica Hodges. Monica Hodges is a master's degree and from Wesleyan University College here. She's a hard worker in the political arena. You don't see her name a lot, but we have to look at the unsung heroes, people behind the scenes who are out there working every day to make sure that the vote is protected, cast, and the franchise is protected. We want to thank you very much for what you do. Thank you for joining us here, and you always can come back here if anything new is going to come in.
I certainly will. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for joining us this week on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.